Yes, people, yes, people, yes, people. Welcome back to the We Talk Football podcast. Damn right, I like the life I live. It's another episode 17. It's a big week. Joined by my guy, Quaker, as usual. How are you doing?
I'm all good, man. I'm all good. It's been a busy week. A lot of things in the pipeline, but it's been good. Life's good, man. Can't complain.
Yeah, Chelsea finally won a game, didn't they?
Yeah. We'll maybe move on to that later on in the pod. Obviously, we're joined by Coach Yas. This has been a podcast in the works, in the making for quite a while. We talked before Christmas, but kind of life happens and we've had a bit of a mix up, but glad to have you on the podcast this week. Yeah. So how you doing?
I'm good. Thanks, guys, man. How are you?
I'm very well. And just to preface this guy, this guy's a big deal. He was playing it sly off camera, but yeah, he's got his own podcast called the Coaches Network. Has a lot of ex-pros on there, ex-coaches, even ex-basketball Hall of Famers, current Hall of Famer like Shaquille O'Neal. He's a big deal. He's also an affiliate tutor for the FA. He teaches and deals with the education of a lot of new coaches coming into the game. So he's a guy that knows football and he's very accomplished to We Talk Football. Mm-hmm. So yeah. How's life though? How is life right now?
Yeah, no, it's good, man. Like as you say, it's been like we touched on before the start of the conversation, it's been a difficult one for everyone as well. I think over the last few months, not knowing where we stand with lockdown, where we don't stand with lockdown. I guess thinking that we're about to come out of lockdown, all of a sudden we get slapped with even a bigger one. Where did lockdown tier 4 come out of?
Yeah,
I don't even know, man. But how about yourselves?
Yeah, man. It's same for us, really. We're just taking every day as it comes because there were periods where life was looking like it was getting back to some like sort of normality, and then me and Quaker were South East London based, and then tier 4 got thrown in straight away. Everything's closed again. It's just moving one step forward to go 3 steps backwards. So it's just being patient and taking every day as it comes, really.
100%, man. I think this is probably the most difficult one for everyone because it's almost no end point in sight, and they keep moving the goalposts on it. So, but it's about, I guess, just keep working hard and everyone keep cracking on with what they're doing, and I'm sure we'll get out of it in a bright note.
I think the light is at the end of the tunnel, though. We can see obviously with the vaccinations and that coming. I feel like come summer, hopefully we can return to some sort of normality, whatever that is. But yes, I suppose we can't really complain. We're living and we're doing our thing, so things have been good.
Good stuff, man.
Yeah, so tell us about yourself then, Coach Yas, I should say. Obviously, you're an affiliate tutor with the FA. What does that role involve?
Yeah, I mean, well, I guess it is what it says on the tin. I'm an affiliate tutor, so I don't necessarily work for the FA. I guess I work on a consultancy basis where, I guess, between myself and the rest of a tutor workforce, we deliver coach education courses at entry level and maybe slightly beyond that as well. I guess preparing mainly level 1, 2 and 3 qualifications, with your level 3 being a UEFA B license, at county FA level. And then I guess anyone that wants to kind of go on and into the level 4, which is the UEFA A, and obviously the pro license beyond that, becoming more of a national FA qualification, and kind of that's within their remit as opposed to county FAs.
Yeah, I mean, how much has that been affected during this COVID period? How is like that? It's such a tumultuous period. How have you managed to overcome that and like deal with the education and coaches throughout this period?
Yeah, I mean, well, I think I can only speak for myself. I think certainly what I would say for me, just to kind of give you a bit more context on how those courses are delivered. I mainly work across level 1 and 2 qualifications. The level 1 is a 3.5-day course, face to face the whole way through. Now I know from experience that's now been transitioned from, I guess, having that face-to-face format where you'd come in over the maybe course of 4 or 5 weeks, finish that off, to now being transferred over to an online platform where you kind of do, I guess, webinars, so to speak. Yeah. So from that perspective, I don't really get involved in the webinar side of things. Level 2 slightly differently because it's a little bit more intense. Yeah. And obviously a large part of the level 2 qualification is actually myself, or I guess my colleagues, coming out to coaches' environments and actually watching them in their own environments, which obviously can't happen right now. And there's all sorts of, I guess, legalities and complications in terms of, it's not as simple as one of you guys delivering a session and saying, right, can I send you a copy of my session on a YouTube clip or a DVD or whatever it is. So I guess that from that perspective, it's at a standstill a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think as a result of the pandemic, to be honest, the FA themselves are going through a lot of transitions. I think over the last few months in particular, I guess they made about 44 or so staff redundant as a result of the pandemic, and also scrapped a lot of the support that was going out to the grassroots environment in particular.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's synonymous with, football in this country. People don't realise, obviously, the Premier League and the Football League have managed to, somewhat play games with behind stadiums, but, like all non-league games were scrapped. And, so it's kind of synonymous. Like football going for a very, very tough period now. There's a lot of redundancies across the board outside of football. So it's horrible to hear that. But yeah.
One thing I will pick up on is it must be because I can only speak for myself. Like during the pandemic, it kind of gave me time to refresh and reflect on what I was doing and kind of take a different path completely in terms of career. So in terms of people, I'm assuming there's going to be loads of people who have maybe took a step back and was like, I actually want to go into coaching. But as a result of the pandemic, there must be like a massive backlog of people who want to get into coaching but actually can't as a result of the pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult kind of to speak on the overall climate, but I think certainly there is a lot of people that are trying to get onto courses, but there's no courses at present available. I know certainly, for instance, that level 1 course, which is your entry-level course, for anyone that was maybe kind of a midway through it, they'll be given the opportunity to transition to over to an online platform to kind of finish the qualification. Yeah. But as it stands, there's no openings or availability for anyone to kind of begin their journey, shall we say. And that kind of, that's consistent throughout the whole pathway. I think the only kind of course that I'm aware of that has been ongoing, despite not starting, was the UEFA A license level 4 qualification, which was kind of, they recognised, I think partially because it has to be kind of set in stone a little bit more in advance who's actually going to be on the course. Yeah, it gives them a little bit more time to play with in terms of understanding, right, what could that journey then look like? Whereas a level 1 course is pretty much a level 1 course that starts every couple of weeks. So I guess where there's a larger volume of courses, it's probably harder to make a bigger change or a sudden change in such a short space of time, if that makes sense.
And from your point of view, in terms of the knock-on effect that this is going to have, Jamie touched on football kind of being cancelled below League 2. So do you reckon that will cause knock-on effect in terms of the availability of coaches and the amount of people who will go into coaching? Do you reckon there'll be a shortage further down the line?
I thought, well, there's 2 points to touch on there. So over, just coincidentally, had nothing to do with the pandemic as far as I'm aware. The FA recently released a new course called the Playmaker course, which is, I guess, in some ways the new entry-level qualification. So it's almost like for anyone that might have an interest in going into coaching, it's an online course you can take. I don't know, it's a matter of hours, 6 to 7 hours. I don't know how long it is, so don't quote me on that. But just to kind of give you an insight as to what that first step into coaching might look like and what maybe the expectations are from, I guess, an organisational standpoint, but maybe possibly even from a safeguarding and facilitation standpoint. So again, don't quote me on that because I haven't done it, but I do know that they've recently brought that out, which again kind of lends itself nicely into the way the new pathway may end up looking. Yeah. There's a lot of talk, especially amongst the coach educators and inside the FA in particular, around what the future pathway would look like. I think it'd be very difficult for them to be able to turn around and try and move everything online, because at the end of the day, it's a competency-based, practical, I guess, skill, if you want to call it that, or a profession. Yeah. So I guess you do need to be assessed on the practical competencies at some point. So you can't just be expected to. It's not quite like dare I say, a degree where you can actually just study, get your research, and you just eventually work your way through it, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And this, so because of this being your role, is this what essentially, was this the light bulb moment in your mind where you thought, I'm going to go create the Coaches Network and start a podcast?
No, it's interesting. Good question. I mean, to be honest with you, I've probably been sitting on the idea of the Coaches Network for about 3.5 years. But a whole bunch of other stuff's gone on in my personal life. Where I've kind of not really pushed it when it first came out, and it was, I guess, over time, and as you guys will probably be aware of, some projects that you guys may have had ideas on. You have an idea, it evolves, and this is never quite how you imagined it to be in the first place, but then as it evolves, you kind of almost all of a sudden, boom, that's it, that's the direction I need to go in with it.
For sure.
So I guess really what had happened was, to kind of give a bit of a backdrop, was I've had this idea for about, 2017, around that sort of time. But I'm a massive podcast listener myself. Maybe not so much recently on, kind of strangely now that we're in a pandemic, but I'd always listen to podcasts, and I thought, okay, do you know what? I can actually see myself doing that. But I'd always, I guess, sit on the idea and think, well, what would that look like? So I guess, coming back to the start of the podcast, lockdown came in last March. Got to April, 4 weeks in, I'm thinking, I'm bored up my head. I'm bored. I'm used to being busy, and it was just, the ones there, it was, well, better, it wasn't even necessarily you were bored so much. It was you wanted to be productive with your time.
Yeah.
You didn't want to just be sitting there catching on. I probably watch every single Netflix series now. It's crazy, mad. But
what was your favorite one? What was your favorite Netflix series?
Oh, do you know what? I think How to Get Away with Murder, man.
I ain't seen that.
Ooh, that one. Top show, man.
Yeah.
That one, and there's a recent one that's just come out, actually, The Night Walker.
Yeah. Was that the Hollywood one?
Yeah. That one's cold still.
That one's
so coming back to that April time, I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I need to do something with my time, because obviously a large part of I guess I've been fortunate in some ways that the last few years in particular, I haven't really had to do anything outside of working in football. So I guess just to kind of explain a little bit more about how the tutor role works, because I'm not, I guess, an employee of the FA, it's almost like as and when the work comes up for them. But I kind of, scheduled my lifestyle around an idea of, making myself available for that, because I wanted to get as much experience doing it as possible. I kind of, to some extent, ended up becoming the go-to guy in my county for courses, to the point where I was probably delivering on average maybe about 10 to 15 courses a year. So I was keeping myself busy from that perspective. And then obviously between that, I was doing other bits, like, as we touched on before the start of the conversation. I'm still doing like one-to-ones, still got a few clients from when I used to personal train a few years back, and I'm still kind of working with them now. So it's a bit of everything really in that perspective. So, I had time on my hands now. And I was just sitting down with my missus, and she's like, you've had this idea, why don't you just get it started? And I was thinking, it's one of them ones, you just procrastinating, really. Do you know what I mean?
We procrastinated for 20 years, mate.
Oh, tell me, man.
I'm not like the whole premise of our podcast is the fact that we've been having these conversations since the age of 8. We've known each other our entire lives, pretty much.
Yeah.
And it's like, it got to a point where, just like yourself, during lockdown, we were thinking, like, we were just like knocking our heads together, like losing our minds. Like, there's only so much Netflix you can watch. You know what I mean?
100%, man.
There's only like so many things you can do before you just think, I need to do something proactive. And then me and Kwaku just thought, let's just put the camera in front of us. Like the first time, it was so funny. The first time, right, we were in his flat, right? We set up this bookshelf. Quake, do you remember? We set up a bookshelf, and we put 2 books on either side, and then like a balancing thing to hold the camera. It was like so hilarious, man.
It was so budget. It was so budget.
Yeah, but listen, these are the stories which make, I guess, the journey all the much more greater. I mean, for me, like, just to kind of play. So if I go back to that April, May time, I had that conversation, and I remember sitting down off. It was literally maybe a week or so before I had that conversation with my missus. One of my mates came round, and we were sitting down, and I was saying, I've got this idea for this podcast, man. This is what I want to do. This is what I want to do. I'm going to do it. Like, and it was almost like I was talking to him about it as if I wanted to, come on, big it up, man. I needed that little bit of a push, but I wasn't kind of getting. So I was like, okay, look, I'm going to do this. I had to kind of gas myself up for it. Yeah. It was almost like, well, I'm going to do it. Do you want to get involved? And if you don't, I'm still going to do it, sort of thing, innit?
Yeah.
Secretly in my head, I'm thinking, come on, tell me you want to get involved. So, we had that conversation. He was like, yeah, it was cool. Yeah, I'm on it. But I think it's as with anything, I'm sure you guys may be fortunate because you kind of come with the idea together. But I think when an idea is your own and solely your own, as much as you want it to happen, you can't expect anyone to have the same love and passion for it as you do. So, it started off, basically, I didn't know what I wanted it to look like. All I knew, I wanted to start a podcast and that it was going to go somewhere. So how it started was almost me and my mate that I talked about. We was just going to sit down and have conversations just about football, similar to what you guys are doing, but more generally from a coaching perspective, because that's the kind of, that's the area that I work in. And I've always been a stickler for time and trying to be efficient. So why not talk about what I do, but in a way where it's now challenging my perceptions and views, trying so I can learn from it as well. And then in the days leading up to maybe our first recording session, if you like, got talking to another mate of mine. I said, "Oh, do you want to get involved? Do you want to get involved?" So I'm just trying to rally everyone up. But you know, we started off quite well. You know, recorded a few sessions, and I guess what I found was, okay, probably the first few conversations we had, it was just refining and seeing, right, is it quite where I want it to be? And obviously, it's my vision. So we're having good conversations, but I guess it wasn't quite necessarily in the direction that I wanted it to go in, which isn't a slight on them in any way. It's just, it wasn't what I was looking for. And obviously sometimes that can be a challenge as well, because you're now working with other people, and to kind of shift away from that, it can go one of two ways as well, especially if you've already got a prior relationship with them. And so I guess off the back of that, it was almost, right, I've got this weekly conversation, just to kind of paint a picture, sort of weekly conversations around different coaching topics. And I guess what I wanted to do, I wanted to really make it an academic and educational piece. So it was almost like, right, okay, well, here's some research that I've done and looked at, and there's a study that's been done over here, a study done over here, and a study done over here that discuss X, Y, Z, and these are the findings in relation to this. What are your thoughts on that? And what's your experience regarding that sort of thing? And that's kind of where it was. So we managed to record about maybe 10 or 12 episodes, but only ended up releasing 4. I tried it out with a few different, I guess, panel of guests, if you like. And then I just thought, you know what? I'm not 100% happy where it is. It's good content, but it's not quite what I'm looking for at this moment in time. So I just called up a few people that I knew, I guess, working in the game, from having experience working in the game myself. I just reached out to one of my mates. At the time, he just finished doing a year-long, I guess, a season-long placement or role with the England under-16s men's side. We just got talking. I said, look, his name's Patrick. So it's episode 5. So it's the first one where I kind of done like an interview type episode. And I just called him up and said, look, Pat, we need to catch up. Let's catch up. But do you know what would be great? I'd love to just have an interview, see how it goes. We did it, and I tell you, it was that. So coming back to that light bulb moment, it was like maybe 30, 40 seconds into having that conversation, I thought, boom, this is it. Yeah. This feels right. This is the direction it needs to go in, at least for now.
Yeah.
So I kind of went along that pathway, and I thought, you know what? I've always been quite determined, tenacious in some ways, just kind of try and make things work. So I thought, okay, but I don't want to there's loads of these coaching podcasts out there. I don't want it just to be talking about the X's and O's, and there's loads of people that have guests. And for me, it was, right, how do I make this stand out? And, I'm a genuine believer in that. There's no point, take ideas from other people, but don't copy them, because you're never going to be them. They're always going to be one step ahead, because it's their product, if that makes sense. They know where it's going next. They know why it's going in the direction it's going. And I guess taking that in mind, I thought, right, okay, what do I do here? Let me just be audacious. I just started reaching out. People that I knew, people that I didn't know, and think, right, who wants to be involved? And I guess I was pleasantly surprised with some of the responses I was getting. And I think one of the things I have learned over the last couple of years is I'm actually quite good at writing emails and letters, and I guess just speaking in general. I'm quite I've been quoted to be quite eloquent in my communication at times. So I guess let me play on that. Let me see what I can come up with. Then within a matter of weeks, I'm getting the likes of, I guess, Chris Ramsey was on it in the first few weeks of the interviews. I had Tony Carr, legendary West Ham academy director.
I'm West Ham fan, so.
So I had him. I had, at the time, there was a guy called David Coles. He was England's under-18s goalkeeping coach, I think, at the time.
Okay.
He unfortunately was one of the people, as a result of the pandemic, lost his role, but he's since moved on into another role. Fair well done to him. And then had Mark Sampson, former England ladies manager.
Yeah.
Had Dave Jones. if you're in the football world, especially if you're in England, you know Dave Jones. Do you know what I mean?
Are you talking about Dave Jones of Sky Sports? Dave Jones.
Dave Jones from the guy who used to manage Wolves, Southampton.
Okay.
Cardiff, big Dave Jones. Over 1,000 league games. And thinking he's I guess when it comes to English football and English coaches and whatnot, he's relatively big deal. I've done right here. 15 episodes in, and I've got some big guys. I had this other guy, fantastic story. His name was Tom Samfier, a Belgian guy who's a head coach at Gambia, right? And his journey is fantastic. He's worked at, I think, like 13 different nations or something crazy like that. He was one of the nations he worked for was Togo. So he was actually Adebayor's manager at one point. He had some interesting stories about that. But I'm thinking to myself, right, this is going quite well.
And along that journey, sorry to interrupt, along that journey you're going through it, obviously you're saying you've had to have these difficult conversations, like people have got involved and they've dropped off and they've got involved. Yeah. How did you handle that? How did you manage that in terms of like...
Yeah, I mean, it was... I think one of the biggest challenges that I was having more than anything else wasn't necessarily their input, was more so timing.
Yeah.
When you're relying on other people to be available, it's almost like you're relying on other people to be available.
Yeah.
You can't control that. Mm-hmm. So it was at that point there, I'm saying, I've decided to do this. I'm going to need to try and take it by the horns and take control of this.
Yeah.
Because I can't rely on someone else, especially at this point of the journey.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure you guys have been through other ventures that you've tried or haven't tried, but that first initial stage, that's make or break.
100%.
It's going to set the tone for the future. Do you know what I mean? So for me, it was at that time. Go on.
Also as well, like you said, to circle back to one of the first things you said, in terms of like, it was almost like a blank page. When you're in an English, you've got a blank page and there you're pranging because you don't really know what you're going to write. But then you realize that motivation follows action. So was there like, I know you touched on it briefly, but was there like a specific trigger that made you think, I'm actually going to get this, I'm actually going to do this direction I'm going to go in? Was there anything that kind of defined that for you clearly?
Yeah, it was literally, like I said, didn't it? That first interview I did, I invited my mate Patrick on.
Yeah.
And we were maybe 2 minutes tops into it. I thought, straight away, boom, this is it.
But what was it with Patrick that made you?
Do you know what? It could have been anyone. If I'm honest, it could have been anyone. If I'm looking back on it, I think it was actually. This is I guess to paint a bigger picture. So as a coach, and I'm sure we'll touch on this later in more detail, but as a coach, I'm quite conversational. I don't really tell my players too much around what to do, but I'll have an in-depth conversation around why we're doing it, the way we're doing it, why are they doing it the way they're doing it, what are they perceiving, and all these sorts of things. I'm sure we'll talk about that later, but that's just part of my character. That's just part of my personality now. So I find myself having conversations with people, especially ones that can maybe scratch far below the surface. I find myself to be quite effective at that. So I guess it was just asking those questions, and that it was. I guess it wasn't so much what happened in the conversation. It was just more, actually, this feels more natural to me as the person, I guess, hosting the show. So it was almost like, right, again, you have so many podcasts or so many interviews, so many different mediums where these people are being interviewed, and not specifically the people I'm talking to, but where people are being interviewed, and they're very surface level, in my opinion.
Yeah. Unless
you've got a biopic or a documentary of some sort where we're actually not focused on one particular individual, you don't really get to understand who is that person, who the person is behind the journey. And that was what it was for me. I wanted to know, right, doesn't matter who you are. And this is the key bit where I'm trying to make it as inclusive as possible, because it's making it inclusive, making it personable, which is key to me. So whether you're Dave Jones with 1,000 professional games under your belt, or whether you're Tom Jones, just got his first job in the academy, I don't care. I want to know about your story. How have you got to where you've got to? What's influenced you? What are the lessons that you've learned along the way?
Yeah.
And I guess in feedback from most of the people that I've spoken to, everyone has said, do you know what? You asked some good questions, Yas.
Yeah.
You ask questions that I've never been asked before, or I haven't been asked in a long time.
So off the back of that, then, so it sounds like obviously you're a UEFA qualified coach, so that's no mean feat. Like you know about the X's and O's when it comes to coaching, but it sounds like the kind of coaching that you're interested in is more of the man management, more of the triggers, what kind of makes people tick and stuff. Is that right?
I'll definitely go down the line of it's definitely more psychological for me.
Yeah.
You know, I guess in the FA or in football in England anyway, we look at this idea of the four corner model, which is you've got your technical and tactical stuff, you've got your psychological, you've got your social, and then you've got your physical stuff. For me, that psychological piece underpins everything. It underpins everything. You two, I could get you two out here doing a one-to-one session outside and ask you guys to pass the ball to one another. But now, do you understand when you're doing it, how you're doing it, why you're doing it? So if James got the ball and passes you to Quakes, all of a sudden I say to him, right, James, I want you to pass this ball, but when you receive it back, I want you to receive it as if you've got a player on the left-hand side of you. There's no one there. But now, straight away, I'm thinking, right, let's get you thinking, Jamie. Let's get you thinking, because I want you to be aware of why you might be doing it in a particular way. Whereas what I find from my observations, both as a coach and a coach educator, is there's not enough context given or painted in terms of a picture for the players that are being delivered to, if that makes sense. So
providing some insight so the players can then almost apply that knowledge into like game match situations then.
Precisely, because I think without that, why are we doing it?
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Do you know what I mean? There's so many coaches without naming clubs but there's so many even academies that I've seen that they want the players to become excellent technicians. Don't get me wrong, I'm all for it. However, what's the point in being good at using tools when you don't know, or what's the point in knowing all the tools better yet? Yeah. But if you don't know when they need to be used.
See, one thing I want to bring up with you then is because when you look at the football and how it's coached in this country, it's people say it's not tactical, but it's very, very tactical. People have got tactical nous. People understand the X's and O's. But when you go to these Latin countries, where you go to Spain or you go to Italy, there's an X's and O's, but there's a deeper, like more inherent understanding of football. Yeah. Below the surface, below the X's and O's. People make movements for certain reasons that they couldn't maybe explain to you, but it's a deeper thing within them. Do you think that's the case within football in this country? There's not that kind of like understanding of football below that base surface.
Yeah, I think again, it's difficult to be unfair to generalize. Yeah. However, what I would say is that I think coaching and coach education in particular has come a long way over the last 15, 20 years. And maybe more before. God knows what it was like before that. I've been coaching for just over 10 years myself. And I'm sure we'll talk about how I got into that and whatnot. But seeing where it has come from, certainly when I got involved, and where it is now in terms of, I guess, it's much more holistic, which is fantastic. However, I do think it does leave room for people to kind of move away from the X's and O's stuff, which we can't ignore is what the game is actually about. The other stuff is great. It's great to be looking at the physical stuff, the psychological stuff, the social stuff, but it is about the X's and O's. It's a game. It's a technical game. It's an invasion game. It's about winning. Yeah. So I think we can't move away from that. It is about how do we win. It's about strategies and systems, and it is all about that. So I think the one thing I would say is that I think it's maybe not as, I guess the depth of knowledge probably isn't there as much as it is in other countries when you're looking at across the board. But what you've also then got to bear in mind, and I think this is a key thing to highlight as well, and the people always talk about, countries like Spain, countries like England, France and Germany, they've got so many more qualified coaches, right? Yeah. Technically speaking, yes, they have, but also what people don't often kind of pick up on is actually, I think it was 1997, 1998, when UEFA kind of started ratifying all these countries for qualifications. They had, and don't quote me on this, but this is my understanding of it at least, is that at the time, anyone who was a level 2 qualified coach, when UEFA got involved, so to speak, had each governing body, so your Welsh FA, your English FA, the Spanish FA, and whoever else, had almost an option. It was an option to kind of take into the agreement of, right, anyone that's currently qualified at level 2 would automatically be upgraded to level 3, which would essentially make them a UEFA B coach.
Okay.
The English FA didn't opt in for it.
Okay.
So, yes, the other countries do have more UEFA qualified coaches, but the numbers are misconstrued because actually, if they went with it, they'd probably have more than everyone else.
Okay. So that makes sense. That makes sense. But then, okay, so maybe taking it to the base level where, like, because obviously you understand football to a level that me and Jamie probably won't understand because you haven't gone through the coaching like courses and stuff like that. But taking it to the level of how that translates into the game that we see today at the highest level. Do you think that the level of coaching in this country is good enough in comparison to these other countries where they might have more qualified coaches because of the fact that you pointed out before? But is that level of coaching necessarily higher than in other countries, or is it a case of the
again, no, it's a great question. I think the first and foremost thing to highlight is how many English coaches are at the top.
Yeah.
Could you really, I guess, be able to assess that without taking away all the factors in regards to the nationality of the coaches at the top?
Yeah.
So it's a difficult one to kind of answer from that perspective. But certainly one thing I would say is, like I said, the education has developed so much over the last few years, and the FA are probably still the most renowned governing body within the football world across the board. Yeah. You ask anyone how challenging it is to get onto, I guess, not just the UEFA B license, more so specifically the UEFA A license.
Yeah.
I know people that have been waiting 4 years to get on a course and still can't get on it. Oh. I know people have been waiting longer than that have decided, you know what, sod it, I'm not going to do the English FA, I'm just going to go to Wales, or I'm going to go to Scotland instead, or go to Ireland, because it's taking me too long to get on it. Now, the reality is, yeah, it's taking you long to get on it, but now, unless you now go and get some credibility in the game, in my opinion, people are always going to say, yeah, but you went over there to do your A license. You didn't do it with the English FA.
So it holds more weight.
It definitely holds more weight. Certainly, in my opinion, I think a lot of coaches would agree with that as well. To the point where people often ask you, "Oh,
you still there?"
I'm still there.
The education system is fantastic, and certainly where it is now, I don't think it's ever been in a better place.
Yeah,
I think there's obviously things that can be developed and things can be adjusted, and maybe things that probably were well put and well delivered as to where it is now. But you're never going to, I guess, get the perfect product or please everyone in that respect.
See, that's interesting. Oh well, Jay, I think you want to ask something.
I'd say that's very, very interesting, and it's so insightful, and also it's quite telling because, you know, just like you say, that look at the amount of British managers or, you know, that are in the game and managing at the top level, and you contrast that with, you know, the amount of foreign managers out there, and it is telling. And maybe, like you say, with the increase in education and things like that will change, and having facilities like St George's Park and things like that, I imagine that will help not only with like grassroots football, but maybe with the development of coaches in this game. But it's crazy to hear about the intricacies in coaching, and, you know, hear from a perspective where me and Kwaku, as Kwaku alluded to, you know, we've neither of us have really ever expressed a desire to go into coaching. To hear, you know, someone like yourself, you know, talk about it so eloquently, and it's really interesting. I think going back to your podcast, which I think's a huge thing that you do now, and obviously me and Kwaku are huge fans. We found you on Spotify before we found you on Instagram and contacted you. And, you know, just like yourself, where you said that, you know, we're in our formative stages of our podcast, and where you're at a point where you were just messaging people on, you know, on the chance of getting them on. It was very much like a similar thing for us when we found you. And the thing that's crazy is that there are a lot of similarities. So from a personal standpoint, it's good to hear. But yourself, talking about your podcast, I mean, what I like about your podcast is, you know, as it describes, you know, it's in 3 elements. You've got the sit down series, the insight series, and then the how to series. And I like how you provide like a well-rounded opinion, regardless of the person that's coming on, just on a topic. And I think it provides something different that, you know, a lot of podcasts just don't do. But when we talk about your podcast, I think for me and Kwaku, what's some of the best moments you've had on there?
Honestly, the first good moment is actually raw. I'm on Spotify.
That's so true. The maddest thing for us is, like, we were on Spotify like 2 days after we started our podcast, and I was just like, hang on a minute, this is This is real. I can go on my Spotify app now and search. I'm like it's fraudulent. Do you know what I mean? Like we shouldn't be allowed on here.
No, 100%. I think like that. And I think for me that was a big thing because prior to, I guess, doing the podcast, I never used Spotify once. I've always used Apple iTunes or Apple Podcasts.
Oh right.
I'm not looking at it. I'm on Spotify. All right, cool. So that was probably the first big moment. I think, and then kind of go back to the story. So I've started getting some of these guests on. I'm maybe 15 episodes deep inside the first cut. I guess to paint a picture of how much time I had on my hands, in the first maybe 6 weeks of starting the podcast and then recording it, and then it eventually move into the interview element of it, which is part of the Insider series that you touched on there. I'd actually, in the first 6 weeks, not even realizing, and I'll talk about the recordings in a second as well, but I'd actually ended up recording 62 episodes. 62 episodes, not even realizing. So I feel sorry for some of the guests that were early on because their episodes have come out much later than after recording. So that's one thing. So I mean, kind of.
Sorry, yeah, I don't mean to interrupt again, but again, where we're starting out, we're learning on the job. So
that's what it is, though.
For yourself, where you've got those episodes where you've recorded them time ago, obviously you didn't plan to record 62 episodes, that just happened.
Yeah.
But do you kind of try to avoid saying specific dates within your episodes to ensure that those episodes are?
Yeah, it's a good point. To be honest with you, it's something I thought about, but I thought to myself, it's not really important.
Okay, cool.
It's not really important, only because, and I think the beauty of a podcast like the one I'm recording, and I guess probably in some ways similar to yours to an extent, is that because mine's about someone's journey, it's timeless.
Yeah,
so I can always going to have some now, relevance. And it would still be relevant in a year's time. Obviously, if they've gone and done bigger and better things since then, obviously that's going to be relevant too. But to that point, it's always going to be relevant. It's whereas if we're sitting here now having a conversation about what happened in the Champions League final on Champions League final night, and you now release this in 6 months, people be like, what on earth are these guys doing?
They're joking. Yeah.
Did they wait for it to come off pay-per-view to come and report it? Do you know what I mean? So I guess from that perspective, it's like looking at that and saying, right, it's got to be I guess you've got to kind of make it timely in that respect. But because of the nature of my podcast, it doesn't have to be, I guess. And I guess that's where I've always kind of had some sort of advantage, because even in the initial, when I was having that sit-down series and those group conversations, it was never really about what was going on in football. It was different coaching topics, which are always going to be something to discuss, if that makes sense. So I guess I had that advantage in some ways. So, I'm going through the motions of recording these episodes, not even realizing, and to the point where I've become a podcast host, I've become a graphic designer, I've become an editor, I've become visual graphics, motion graphics, all of this. Listen, I know how to do it all now. So I've gone through that journey, and just, I guess, coming back to your initial question, when was it, sort of the biggest moments, and I guess to latch onto was actually, I started getting some random listens in different countries. So I'm now on Spotify, I'm on Apple, I'm on here, I'm on here, I'm on here, I'm on here. And I'm looking at this list of countries. And inside the first 6 weeks, I'm seeing 15 countries. I'm thinking, right. The Coach Yas Network podcast, is that what I'm doing? Yeah, all right, calm. So 15 episodes in, I'm thinking, right, okay, I'm in, 15 or 16 countries by then. By episode 21, I'm in 28 countries.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing on the this is where I thought, okay, there's something going on here. Something must be going right. I see Bermuda and Suriname on the list. I thought, how did that happen? How the hell did that happen? So just kind of going through it, and then as I got to, I guess, record. Like I said, I've already got something in the bank in terms of the recordings, but I'm still recording. And I get to probably about middle of June. So this is maybe about 8 to 9 weeks in now since I started it, and I'm having a conversation with a guy called Dan Abrahams, who's a sports psychologist, a world-renowned sports psychologist. He's got his own podcast, the Dan Abrahams Show. And again, going back to my initial idea of, right, I want it to be education, I want it to be academic. Boom, light bulb moment, how-to series, this guy's not a footballer. He's not a sports. He used to be a golfer, but he's not a coach. Yeah. He's not in that space. He's working in a different field. So, boom, how-to series, right? Got it. And I kind of put pressure on myself a little bit because obviously up till now it's all interviews with coaches. So I've put pressure on myself by throwing this one out there and not having something to follow up with, because he was the only one at that time who had interviewed outside of the world of coaching. So I was like, oh, snap. What am I going to do here? I need to go bag a bunch of guests who are not coaches now. So I started thinking outside the box and who are people that I'd want to listen to? What are the topics that I'd want to hear about? And I guess to kind of paint the journey now, you know, it started off very much football coaching specific. Branching out to, I thought, okay, let me bring in the psychologists, let me bring in the leadership experts, let me bring in these sorts of people to see where it can go. And then lo and behold, a few weeks later, I've got maybe about 8 or 9 episodes recorded for the how-to series, because I've kind of parked the Insight series a little bit because I had so many on the go. Which gave me a bit of time to kind of shift my focus and attention to this. So I'm thinking we're probably in the middle of or early July, and I'm now releasing twice a week. So I'm on Tuesday and a Friday. Now, people are saying to me, "Well, but you know, you really just started. You sure you want to do that? You sure you want to commit to that?" I was like, "Yeah, why not?" If anything, it would test me to kind of stay on point. Started doing that. Before you know it, I'm now in the middle of like August, and I'm thinking, so yeah, it's going quite well. I've managed to get a few episodes under my belt. Now, kind of just to backtrack a little bit, I remember in that conversation after I had that conversation with Dan Abrams, sitting down with my wife, I said, you know what? I got big plans for this podcast, you know, darling. I've got big plans, and I'm telling you, this podcast is gonna blow. It's not. I don't know when it's gonna blow. It still hasn't blown yet. But I know, it's one of them when I'm speaking into existence.
Yeah.
You know, those words are words that Quaker uses every day.
Trust me, it's facts that you have to speak into.
But it's like, it's that
you don't believe it, you can't expect anyone else to believe it.
You feel it. So I can't even put like my finger on it. I don't want to sound too gas as well, because we've got like 39 subscribers on YouTube. But it's like something where you can just like feel
you've got to start somewhere.
In the air.
It was the light bulb.
There's going to be a tipping point where all of a sudden that 39 cents to 39,000.
Yeah.
For sure.
But you've just got to stay consistent.
And it's like what you said. You had that light bulb moment where you realized you were doing something that you thought, yeah, I can do something with this. For me and Kwaku, you know, we went into November and we thought, you know what, we want to go in a different direction. We want to have these articulated conversations with guys that have been dropped from football clubs, and we want to talk about the mental health aspects of the game to tie in with November. And me and Kwaku were having these conversations with, you know, we knew some of these people, or they were friends of friends and things like that. And to gain these insights with guys that I've been friends with for years, and, you know, talk about how they were affected and shine a light on something like that. That was like a light bulb moment for us.
100%. I think the beauty of that as well, James, is that you're having conversations with people that you've known all your life and or you've known for such a long time, but you've never had these discussions.
Exactly. It's like peeling back the layers.
And I think that's the key part. So, you know, like I said, I'm going back to now June, having that conversation where just after I've recorded, you know, that first how-to episode, and I'm thinking, because at the time it wasn't going to be a how-to episode, it was still going to be part of the Insight series, and I was just going to let it run with it. And I thought, nah, I've got 2 products now. Let's go with this, because this might now all of a sudden open up a different market of the audience in terms of I can get in, because they might not like football. They might have nothing to do with football. So even if the guest who I've got on is not talking about football, using my knowledge and the way I can articulate myself, I'm going to try and bring football into it, but link it into what they're saying rather than take it over, if that makes sense. And if they're talking about football, then fantastic. So, you know, just to kind of paint a picture, I've got psychologists, a couple of different ones. I've got people that are, I guess, experts in different coaching aspects. I've got sleep therapists. I've got different people that nutritionists. I've got sports scientists. You know, the list goes on in terms of that. So it's kind of just growing. And I remember sitting down with my missus in June, and we're literally laying in bed. And I'm just having this conversation. She said, "Oh, so what do you want to do next?" You know, I'm thinking, no, this thing's gonna blow.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, give me a year. This thing's gonna blow. I don't know what day it's gonna happen, when it's gonna happen, but it's gonna blow. And I'll tell you what, I'm gonna get some bad boy guests on this show. Yeah. I can feel it, and I'm gonna make it happen. And lo and behold, we're sitting there. She goes, "Okay, cool. So let's make a name of the guest then." Let's make a name of the guest. I'm thinking, do you know what? Yeah, a man's gassed right now. Let me reel this list up. So we've got first one's up. I think I said something audacious like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get Michael Jordan on this shit, right? And I still believe it. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. So watch it. Mark this episode as the one to remember. Yeah. So it's a Michael Jordan, and I'm a big fan of Eric Thomas, motivational speaker. Yeah. I'm gonna get him on my show. What happened last week? Eric Thomas liked my tweets.
Yeah, it's happening.
I'm thinking, right, all right, cool, we're getting somewhere. It's just that having that speaking into existence. So got Michael Jordan, Eric Thomas, and I'm just, the names are coming off, and on that list was Shaquille O'Neal.
Yeah.
On that list was Shaquille O'Neal. This is back in June. Getting to August now, I'm thinking, right, okay, cool. I need to find out how I'm gonna start tapping into some of these people now. Again, started putting out emails to different people that I knew in the industry and in and around the industry, and I started getting a bit of a bite back. I'm thinking, well, okay, this might be the avenue,
Yeah. So
this one, I think, it's one of them ones where if you want to, again, I'm not saying I haven't really achieved anything here. I'm still in the same space as you guys in terms of I'm still learning. I'm still trying to get my podcast known, so to speak. But I guess the first time where I thought, do you know what, this is gonna happen. I reached out to someone, right, and I'll throw it out to you in a second. I'll give you a little quiz on it, this is an ongoing conversation, and it never materialized, unfortunately. And I don't think it's the end of it, but I think it will happen eventually. But it was genuinely discussions around this happening. I think because it's still relatively new, people are a bit hesitant to want to work with people they don't know. The ones there.
Yeah.
So I'm now in talks with getting this guy on my show. He's a 3-time Champions League winner, World Cup winner, right? And he's played for Real Madrid and Inter Milan.
Okay, cool.
World Cup winner.
3 times Champions League winner.
He's Italian. He's got to be Italian. He's got to be maybe. No.
I'm telling you, he's legendary. I thought, I can't believe this conversation's even happening at this stage, right?
Real Madrid, Inter Milan. All right, carry on the story. We'll come back to the other. I need to get this. I'll be pissed if I don't.
I'll give you another clue. He scored one of the most iconic goals in the history of football as well, right? So having this conversation now, and again, it didn't materialize as of yet, but it was getting there, and it's just an ongoing conversation that needs to maybe continue happening. And I guess it's just finding the right time and the right circumstances, so to speak. But that little, just getting that conversation and the ball rolling on it. See Jamie scratching his head. Who is it?
Yeah,
I'm thinking, man. I'm thinking big time.
You shouldn't have thrown that out because, you're saying some insightful stuff, but I can't even think of. I'm judging. There it is. I'm like, I can't.
Right. Okay, I'll give you another clue. He was part of the first Galacticos.
Part of the first Galacticos. All right. Okay. Cool.
Brazilian. It's got to be Brazilian.
Inter Milan, Madrid.
I'm thinking Ronaldo. No,
he hasn't won the Champions League. He hasn't won one
Champions League. No,
3 Champions Leagues.
Thing is that's mad about Inter Milan. Inter Milan have had some ridiculous statistics for years. They've had someone in the World Cup final for a long them and Bayern Munich. Oh man, this is hard. Man.
Yeah, I know. We talk football, so if I don't get this, I'll be so pissed. I'm so pissed. It will actually just bother me so much. This is making for great content.
Midnight, he scored an iconic goal against France.
Scored an iconic goal against France. Okay, that's enough clues. Iconic goal against France. He's won the World Cup. So, 94. He won 94. Brazil won 94. France won 98.
That's what I'm saying. It's got to be Brazil.
It's got to be Brazil or France. But who won 1990 was German. Germany, Italian.
Romario? No, it wouldn't be Romario. No, it wouldn't be Romario.
I'm so annoyed I can't get this.
Oh, pissed.
Yeah.
A podcast derailed. We're
Brazilian, yeah.
Brazilian.
Just think. Right. Left back.
Roberto Carlos.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Wow. Right. So I'm having conversations with Roberto Carlos and his people, right?
Mad.
And I can't believe this is happening.
Yeah.
And that was it. From there, I thought, okay, boom, it's going to happen. Everyone I put on this list, I'm getting them. I don't know when, but I'm getting them. So moving forward, we're getting to October. September now. Start of September, I kind of, we sat down, me and my missus, and kind of went through my list again. And we're like, boom, let's get these people, let's target these people. And I kid you not, right? This is maybe the first week of September. By the first week of October, my missus has found a way to. She's now speaking to Shaquille O'Neal.
You don't understand. That light's the light in me. Like I'm quite cool to say for me. I've been a basketball player my entire life. Like Shaquille O'Neal growing up, like him and Kobe were my idols, man. Like that's madness.
But this is the thing, though, Jim. You don't even need to know basketball to know who he is.
No, he's larger than life.
He's literally an icon around the world. So that happened now, and just to kind of, that one took a few months to finally get over the line. But we're having that conversation in October. Things are going well. Starting picking up. I've still got a bag of episodes in the bank, but I'm still recording. Because I don't know what my next couple months are going to look like. So I want to kind of keep the momentum. So if I've got a backlog, I can always kind of boom, here, there's some episodes coming out. It gives me a bit of a breather, if that makes sense. So like, for instance, this month, I said to myself, I'm not going to record anything. As in January, just gone. I'm not going to record anything. I ended up recording another 15 episodes in the space of the two middle weeks of January. And I thought, I wasn't meant to record anything. But because I've got so many other things going on at the same time as well. So I've done that. Speaking to him in October, we get to, sometimes towards the end of October, and it's, we're working on time difference, we're working on making schedules right. And you've got to bear in mind as well, I'm not paying him. It's not like a booking fee or anything attached to it. So it's literally as and when he's available. But within that first conversation, he was like, yeah, I'm down. Let's do it. I'm on it.
What? Okay. Cool.
Okay, quick. Sorry, bro, but I want to know, what are you thinking when Shaquille O'Neal is?
I'll tell you the story, because what actually happened was, is, like I said, I put these names on the list, and my wife, my biggest number one fan, biggest supporter, shout out to her, and I guess it was one of them ones where we've just thrown it out there. You don't know what's gonna happen, but yeah. And I think I remember this clearly. I remember this day in particular. So we messaged him. She managed to get hold of him, whatever. She contacted him, but he hasn't responded, right? So then there was one particular day, and I remember this so clearly. So obviously lockdown. We've got one of them shisha pipes at home, right? So we've got a little balcony. She's sitting in the balcony smoking a shisha. I've gone out to do some one-to-one trainings or some football sessions and whatnot. And I get a call from her, and like, she doesn't usually call me when I'm on my way to work, if that makes sense, right? So she calls me. She's like, "You're not gonna believe this." I was like, "What? What happened?" I just got a FaceTime with Shaq. But the thing is, her phone. So basically, her phone rang initially, but she thought it was me. And when she picked it up, she's like, right?
I can't even explain how mad that is.
It's crazy. So, I'm sitting there, I'm thinking to myself, what is it? Like, she goes, yes, she's got the phone to Shaq. I was like, okay, cool, dope. Like, I guess, because I'm so certain these things are now going to happen, I'm not as shocked and surprised to even hear them.
Yeah.
I was just like, yeah, cool, right. So what's happening now then? Tell me what I've gone in it. I don't really care if he was on phone to him, but what's happening? And then lo and behold, she's like, yeah, he said he's on it. He's gonna call me back. She was like, oh, I've just spoken to Shaq. She's all gassed and whatnot. Like, all right, cool, but let's get to the point, innit? Let's get to the point. So anyways, so cool. We're trying to set a date in place, and I guess we it was going back and forth on that, trying to set a date, and eventually we finally set a date for sometime early November or towards the end of October. And what had happened was obviously they're a few hours behind us, kind of gave us a time to kind of work to, and we said, right, okay, cool. I think it was going to end up being like 2 a.m. for us or something like that. And I was like, you know what, got to do it, forget what time, just do it, man. But we stayed up. It's like 1:30, getting ready, everything's ready. I'm so gassed, and got one of my close mates who ended up actually doing the interview with me. He's I guess one of my closest mates, and he's been there for me a lot throughout my life. So I thought, you know what, let me let me bring you in on this. It's just a kind of, I guess for someone that's a big thing. Do you know what I mean? Just to show my appreciation. I thought, you know what, let me bring you in. I don't have to bring you in, but I'm going to bring you in just because I appreciate everything that you've done for me, sort of thing. And it's a big opportunity because he's also got his own podcast as well.
Yeah.
So bring him in. At first, he's like, "No, no one actually believed it." I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to be interviewing Shaq." I'm telling you, I'm interviewing Shaq. They're like, "Yeah, whatever, man, whatever." Now I'm actually interviewing Shaq. Got to that night. Was up 1:30, getting ready. Yes, we're getting gas. Got the snacks out, everything, man. All good to go. 2 a.m. come, nothing. 2:30, nothing. 3 a.m. nothing. 4 a.m. nothing. And then we conked out. This is getting late. We get a message about 10-15 minutes after we went to sleep, but we didn't see it till a few hours later. Let's go.
Oh no!
I thought, that's what this ain't happening. Now we're gonna make this happen. So I gave it kind of a week or two, kind of died down a little bit. Didn't really have no contact, so it was like, maybe we've lost it. Maybe we missed our opportunity, sort of thing. Chased it, and going through the motions, still recording bag of episodes, getting loads of different guests. I've got another story as well, just coming to my head as well. And get to, I guess, early December. And then kind of having that same mindset, the same approach, start reaching out to different people. And then I remember we touched base, because when did George Floyd thing happen?
June. Or the protest of June, so it must have happened in like May.
Yeah, right. Okay, so we're getting, I think, so around that time where I've made that list, I've also reached out to a bunch of different people. And a few people got back to us. But a lot of them were like, it's not a good time for right now because all the Black Lives Matter and everything like that. So cool, no problem, man. As and when in it's no rush. The fact that you've just been able to respond is kind of, it's good enough for me at this stage. You know, them ones there.
Yeah.
So one of those people happened to be Sol Campbell.
Wow.
Now, as football fans, Sol doesn't really do a lot of interviews.
Yeah.
Doesn't really do. You don't really see a lot of Sol Campbell in. There's a lot of perceptions about who Sol Campbell is and type of person he is, and I can honestly say that having had the opportunity to have that conversation with him, I've definitely got very different perceptions of him as opposed to what is maybe perceived in the public eye.
One thing I would say is for people who listen to this who haven't listened to the episode, go and listen to the episode, because that's one I really enjoyed, that one of the podcast, and also the one with Luke Chadwick as well. So if anyone hasn't listened to it, definitely go and listen to it because they're really insightful. And like you said, with Sol Campbell, there's a perception around him in terms of him being this kind of character and kind of almost, people want to say that he was toxic and poisonous in dressing rooms. Lest we forget that this guy probably should have been England captain. There's mitigating factors that meant that he wasn't. Obviously, we can touch on those later. And he's just somebody who seems very frustrated. Yeah, 100%. Express that frustration, and it's well, carry on with the story. But I just wanted to tell everyone to go into the episode.
So we're getting to December now. Let's just reach out to him again. Reach out to Sol Campbell again. He's like, yeah, I'm on it. Let's go. Let's set a time and place. And it was almost, let's set a time so we can catch up over Zoom, right? Now, because my conversations they're not scripted. They're just organic conversations. I don't really need a script to work off. And I don't really need to know what questions I'm going to ask you because I'm going to take it whichever way it goes. Yeah. And I'll get out maybe what I want from the conversation in that respect. So he was obviously speaking to my missus. They've lined up the conversation. And off the back of them lining up the conversation, he was like, oh yeah, let's catch up on it over a Zoom call. Now, it was funny because he was like, yeah, I'm only going to do 30 minutes max. That's it. I'm like, all right, cough.
Yeah.
I ain't even spoken to you yet. This is what he's saying over text or whatever. He's had a quick call over the phone, and then get to the Zoom call. And I'm not expecting for this to be the actual recording for the interview.
Yeah.
Like, all right, so we start chatting for a few minutes, kind of how we did off the air as well. And he's like, all right, should we get going? Shall we? I was like, what? All right, cool, fair enough. Let's go, man. Look, I'm ready to go. So that 30 minutes then ended up, as you've listened to it, ended up turning into something like an hour. Yeah. And in all fairness, we probably could have been talking for a lot longer than that. But obviously, you've got mindful of people's time and whatnot. Now that was recorded at the start of December, and I said to myself, I want to give it a big push before we get to Christmas and New Year, and try and get some more exposure for the podcast. So I'm going to drop Sol Campbell's one early before maybe some of the other ones that I had kind of planned. Now, the maddest thing about it is not many people actually know that I've got Sol Campbell on my podcast. And I'll get onto that in a second. Because what had actually happened was I released that on Christmas Day. And then I don't know about your guys' show in particular, but I know mine, what I've noticed is people don't, because of the kind of, I'm just assuming now, that because of the nature of the content, that it's not a week by week thing that you have to be in today's space to know what's going on with the episode. People are kind of just dipping into the archives and just looking through whatever appeals to them and going straight to that one and just working it like that. And obviously anyone that's caught up is caught up. So the numbers are going up in terms of, subscribers and downloads and all of that stuff. Numbers are going up, but it's not necessarily on the latest episode, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But as far as I'm concerned, I don't really care, but just listen to it and just enjoy it. Done. So Christmas Day, I'm in a gas mood. I've just dropped Sol Campbell. 2 days before that, I had an interview with one of my close mates who kind of, in the process of leading up to that conversation, or in the conversation rather, I basically opened up to him about an experience that I had maybe 10 years or 15 years prior, probably 20 years prior now, and not knowing till maybe 2-3 days before I had that interview with him, Apple Westcott, that actually, thinking back on it, I didn't realize it, but the person who I had that experience with was him.
Yeah.
And I didn't actually know that until I didn't actually think about it until 2-3 days before I actually sat down and had a conversation. I'm thinking to myself, this is going to sound crazy, but I remember this experience. And I want to know, was that you? And he was like, yeah, I used to do that. And basically, he's a couple years older. He was like, yes, you know what? I had no idea you was one of those kids that I used to do that with. Like he used to coach. Like he'd be in the park kicking ball, but he always used to maybe chat to some of the younger guys around and just to kind of help them, on their skills and whatnot. And I just remember this guy, like, in the park. I'm sure it was you.
Yeah.
But I didn't know at the time. So that's happened now, and then having that conversation. Anyways, fast forward. I've gone back to sort of Christmas Day, so I'm still gassed because that was the first episode I released on YouTube. I think I'm on YouTube now, and just why that I guess meant a lot to me, right? Is because I've got a daughter. She's 7 from a previous relationship, and one of the things that me and her used to do a lot is pretend that we're on YouTube.
Yeah.
Right? We used to pretend that we're on YouTube. She'll pull out my camera. She was like, "Daddy, you got to record me," and da-da-da-da-da. I'm like, "All right, cool." So just through other circumstances, I don't really get to see her as often as I'd like. But whenever, I was thinking, I'm looking forward to speaking to her now, because when I tell her that your dad's on YouTube, she like, I knew she won't believe it. She's like, "No, Daddy, you're not on YouTube. You're not on YouTube. You're lying. You're pretending." I was like, "All right, cool. Let's flip the camera. Watch this." And she's like, "Oh my God, my daddy's a YouTuber."
Yeah. It's weird with the YouTube thing because that's what translates the most. Like, especially with my parents, my mum's not the most tech savvy. So like I sent her the Spotify link. Whenever we release an episode, I put it in the group chat. She's like, "Oh, I don't know how to access it. I haven't got Spotify." She still listens to CDs or whatnot.
Yeah.
When I send her the YouTube link, she looks at it. I can tell she's a bit more gas. Like, she's like, "Oh, he's on YouTube, like on the internet."
100%.
I also completely relate to you as well. Like, I've got little sisters that are like, well, they're 14 and 11, but they're in that generation where YouTubers are the celebrities now.
Yeah.
100%. So when I go into when I go into my mum's house and I put, my video on the telly and they see me there, it's like, what? It's all mad. But yeah,
it's gassed, man. Honestly, so I'm having that. I'm looking forward to that. And like I said, I've been gassed off that, and seeing as it was Christmas week, I got a bag of episodes. I thought, you know what? Let me just drop a bag of episodes this week. So I dropped 5 episodes in the space of like 6 days or something like that.
Jeez.
I think just thought, let me just drop it and see what happens. Because like I said, what I've noticed with my content is people are listening to it not necessarily because it's the latest, but just because it's part of the archive. Go on, you have a question there, quick?
Yeah. So I was going to say, so with that, then what was the motivation to carry on recording? Was it a case of I know you said, oh yeah, so if anything comes up in the future, then I can. But then do you not feel like, because I feel it myself and I don't even do the editing, like maybe because our process isn't as streamlined as you've got yours, but when we release an episode and come to like the editing part of it, I'm panicking, like I've got to get like, if you've got like,
do you know what,
episodes need to get edited, then that's just going to be like panic, surely, no?
Yeah, no, I think the thing that made it easy for me over time, I got clear on, I guess I got streamlined in terms of how I was going to edit it. So what you should do is, and on some occasions, I'd record 3 episodes back to back with 3 different people. I'd have one from like 9 till 10:30, then I'll book in another one from 10:45 to 12:15, and you know, just keep it going. Sometimes, you know, obviously you guys now know Gerald. I recorded with Gerald at the time. Obviously, he was over in the Middle East when I recorded with him. I think I must have recorded with him at like 6:30 in the morning. Because obviously it was going to work for him, and then obviously after that one I'll be already up and get ready to record the next one. So I was just kind of going through the motions, but I guess what made it easier for me, and I guess it probably makes sense as well, is that obviously you got to bear in mind at the time a lot more of it was just audio.
Yeah,
I've only recently started coming onto YouTube, but even then I haven't really given it a big push yet.
What made you make the switch? Obviously, you talked about your daughter like being gassed of you being on YouTube. But what made you switch in terms of professionally from not the switch?
It was. I've got Sol Campbell's one.
Yeah.
So I've got to release it as a video.
Yeah.
I've got to do it, and then in the build up to that, I thought, you know, while I'm doing that, because it wasn't that it was the first one I recorded on video. I'd recorded a bag of them before that, but I just never really, because I didn't do every single one up to that point. I wasn't really pressed about putting it onto YouTube yet.
Yeah.
But I thought, okay, let me just take this and run with it and see where it goes. I still haven't really given it a full push. It's still mainly just audio at this stage, only because I have got so many other projects I'm working on at the moment as well. So just to kind of, you know, paint a picture, before Sol Campbell, I've had the likes of Mark Warburton over at QPR. I've had Hugh Jennings, who's the Academy Director at Fulham. I've had Hope Powell, obviously, you know, Brighton ladies and used to be England ladies manager. Who else? And I thought, okay, this is probably the funniest one. This is what I was going to come on to a little. My first time recording a video, right? And this is where I thought, you know, I must be doing all right with these guests because I've managed to get this guy on. So I'm not sure if you guys know of him, but there's a guy called Franz Hoek. He was basically Louis van Gaal's assistant at Barcelona, at Ajax, at Bayern Munich, and obviously at Man United. So he's world-renowned, considered as the godfather of goalkeeping. Right, because he was the first kind of person ever to kind of put together a research study on goalkeepers and how to maybe effectively train to get more out of them. This is going back to Johan Cruyff. So Johan Cruyff actually brought this guy in to Ajax when he first went there as a coach. And then obviously when Johan Cruyff left, Louis van Gaal came in, and then eventually Louis van Gaal ended up going over to Barcelona, and obviously he just kind of followed Louis van Gaal to a couple of different places where he went. The most recent one being Man United. So I'm sitting there, we're recording, just as we are now. And it's crazy because I've still got the footage, but what I realised is only after we finished recording, there's a fascinating conversation around his journey and what he'd done and all the things that he was doing. Finished the conversation, only to find out there was no audio.
We've had a couple of situations where normally it's on my side where we like maybe the audio's corrupted or like haven't pressed record on the thing or whatnot, and that's heartbreaking.
Heartbreak.
During the first lockdown, we hired a room so we could socially distance and record our view of other people. And we recorded for 2 hours, and none of the footage
it was usable.
But do you know what? That's just part of the journey.
It's all part of the narrative.
Got any footage of, but you can recollect. Create that more, you know, more nostalgic experience about it.
That's me and Jamie say the same thing. Like Jamie just touched on. It's part.
These
of the
are stories that you're going to look back on in a year's time. Do you remember that time?
Oh, that's what I love. I love doing that already. Like we talk about when we first started. Do you remember when like you came to mind? It was before like it was lockdown, and we did this and we did that, and then we had balanced the phone on the thing and we were recording it, and we did this. And like as you get better and as you get smoother and as it gets more polished, you look back on those times and be like, I can't believe it's like that.
Can't believe it.
Every day you're getting better though. So every day
100%.
you're going to be looking back at the day previous being like, I can't believe it was like that. I can't believe it was like
100%.
that.
But just on that note as well, quick, and I think it's an important thing for anyone considering starting a new venture, whether it be your podcast or anything else. Don't wait for it to be great before you get started.
Yeah. Well, that's
the
why
problem that I had.
that's why this guy is like I couldn't do it without Jamie because I'm a perfectionist. Like when it comes to like
that's like me as well. Because I've now learned to not be a perfectionist. Yes, I wanted to look good, and that was another reason why I didn't really come onto YouTube because I wasn't ready to kind of put it on there without having some good clean branding and all that sort of stuff. Do you know what? The branding's great. But the meat and potatoes is what matters.
Yeah. Well, that's the I'm looking for everything to be perfect, like editing this, that, and like Jamie's just like, why are you like? It's not, he always says it's not that deep. Just get it out. Like it's not that deep.
Yeah.
Just getting it out, and then you will get better and improve it. And well, I'm like, it even comes out down to like writing emails and stuff, or like captions on our Instagram. He'll vouch for it. Like he'll write the caption, and he'll look at it. Like 10 minutes later, I've edited it. I've changed this. I've put like a bullet point. I've changed the whole thing. It's just
I say I've wrote a caption for you to change quick.
Yeah.
What I say.
Yeah. Oh, and one of the interesting things is as well, because I was having this conversation with my missus as well. She'd be like, just put it out there. And obviously, even to the point where things are starting to look better. And she goes, should I delete the older posts on the Instagram and should I delete this and delete that? She goes, nah, it just shows growth, innit? It just shows the journey a little bit more. Makes it more organic and more authentic. So keep everything there. And she's right. I think it helps for people to understand the journey a little bit more. So kind of to come back to that part now, we're in December. I just dropped Sol Campbell. Christmas Day. I think, yes, big episode, wicked, right? Getting gassed. And I was like, just to my missus, call Shaq. I'm in a good mood. Call Shaq. It's gonna happen tonight. It's gonna happen tonight. Call him now. She says, it's Christmas Day. I said, I don't give a shit. Call him. Right? Called him. He goes, what's up? He picked up on Christmas Day. What's up? About to go to my family house. Give me a call back in 6 hours and we'll get it done.
Yeah.
So cool. Let's do it. So it would have been maybe roughly about 10 o'clock our time. Calling back at 10. We're guessed. Yeah, we're gonna get it. We're gonna get it done this time. I said it's gonna happen. I don't care what's happening. It's gonna happen tonight. Before I go to sleep, I'm recording with Shaq.
Yeah.
Get to 10 o'clock. Nothing. 11 o'clock, nothing. 12 o'clock, nothing. I said, I ain't making the same mistake twice. 1 o'clock, my wife was like, no, I can't do this now. I'm tired. I'm going to bed. It's about 1 o'clock. Wipe some makeup off, had a shower, everything, gone into sleep, gone to bed, and I'll get a text. I'm still gassed. I'm still on a high. I've just released Sol Campbell, innit? Shaq says, let's go. I said, yeah, we've got to do it. She goes, we've got to do it. We've got to do it. And then lo and behold, Christmas Day 2020, I'm sitting on, or 2 a.m. for me now by this time, Boxing Day, I'm sitting down on Zoom like I am with you guys now.
Yeah.
With Shaquille O'Neal.
See, that's what I don't understand why Shaq, like, because obviously before things had happened and you were supposed to be doing it or whatnot, but I don't understand why on Christmas Day is the day that he responded. I don't like. Do you know what? That's the best time to reach out to someone because, like, they're gonna be in a good mood and they're gonna be about.
I don't even think it's that because, to be fair to him, I've never felt there was any doubt that he was gonna do it from the moment we first connected.
Yeah,
it was just finding the right time, and I think all the more better that, I guess the more special it made it because it was on Christmas Day, where you can actually hear the family in the background where he is. Yeah. You know, at one point in the interview, his mum comes over and offers him food or something like that. It's crazy, but so that happened now. But I think at that point, I'm saying to people, boom, I'm recording Shaquille O'Neal. People on that night, I kid you not, I probably called about 15 people. No one answered.
Yeah,
and it's only because at the time I couldn't get through to my mate who I was going to bring on. I would have brought anyone on just to come and enjoy this experience with me. Do you know them ones there? And then everyone was like, "Oh, why were you calling me last night?" I was like, do you not forget? You got no idea, bro. You got no idea. So it's like, yeah, Bob, I just recorded with Shaquille O'Neal. Like, nah, you didn't do it. So, no, really, why were you calling me? I just recorded with Shaquille O'Neal, man.
Just watch out for January 1st next year.
Literally, I said, wait till next Friday, you'll see. But what was even better than that is he actually then recorded a little bit where he's like, you might have seen it. He's like, hey, everyone in London, I've just recorded with Coach Yas on the Coaches Network. Make sure you check it out. And at that point, people are thinking, wow, you actually recorded with Shaq. I did tell you. You know, the ones there, like, you didn't believe me, but I did it. Yeah. And we made it happen. And then basically, New Year's Day comes, released the episode with Shaq. And I remember at the time, one of my mates, she works in PR and stuff like that. And I thought, you know what, this is a great opportunity for me to kind of maybe touch in with her and maybe get something together to kind of put like an advert together or something like that. Back and forth for like 3 days straight, doing some bootleg video editing stuff on Keynote and things like that. I managed to put this advert together, and it was literally back and forth for 3 days. She was like, "Nah, change this, it's not right, it's not right, it's not right." Finally got there and put it out there, released it, put like a Facebook ad on it or whatever, and it got like a bunch of clicks. But I made a reel basically a reel on it, and I got like maybe a couple thousand views on it. I was like, man, not put all that effort for this. And then basically one of my childhood friends growing up, really good, really close friend of mine, was Ovi. The guy who was on Love Island, right? So Ovi reshared it on his one, and I swear, like within like a couple of hours, it had like 50,000 views. Yeah. Right. So I was like, yeah, cool, right, we're onto something here. We're getting somewhere. That went really well. Started to get a bit more exposure. Now, at that point, we're now gone from just before the new year. Spotify did that 2020 wrap-up thing, and Spotify was on 30 different countries in the year. Get to January, the second week of January, I'm now in like, I think it was like 45 countries after the 1st of Jan. And then this is the one where it kind of just went. We got Shaq to reshare it on his page, on his IG, on his story. He actually reshared the reel onto his story. And within like 2 hours, got like 200,000 views. Yeah. So I don't know what it's on now, but it just basically just got bare views. And by the end of that week, so, you know, about 3 weeks ago, I'm now in 69 countries.
Wow, man.
So it just kind of, it's just gone shot up like that. And I'm conscious we haven't really spoken about the coaching part, but
that's the thing we were conscious about, because obviously we've listened to like your episodes, and like Jamie touched on, you've got different segments or different kind of features that you do in terms of sit down, the insights, and like we kind of wanted to kind of get your insight or get it from the horse's mouth in terms of how you've gone about doing your different things, because we could sit here and we've got different coaches coming on. We've had coaches coming on before. We've talked about the X's and the O's and how they go about it and how they obtain their licenses, which are great conversations. They're amazing conversations. But from your point of view, the angle that we wanted to take it with yourself was, you've talked to some of these people. You've talked to Sol Campbell. Like you say, no one talks to Sol Campbell. Sol Campbell's like kind of like got this mystique about him. Like, unless you see him sometimes on Sky Sports, you don't really talk to Sol Campbell. You don't really see Sol Campbell. Shaquille O'Neal, like, who from England is talking to Shaquille O'Neal? So from our point of view, like you've kind of elaborated on it, just how we want to hear the story in terms of how you've got these people, how you've gone through your journey. So even though we haven't talked about the X's and the O's, and you are Coach Yas and you do run the Coaches Network, this is exactly what we wanted to hear in terms of
I guess in short, the one thing I would say about it is that it's still an ongoing journey. Like I said, by no means I'm still not where I want it to be, but it's a massive milestone. It's a massive achievement for me and my missus to kind of get to that point. We've got Shaquille O'Neal on our podcast. You know what I mean? And honestly, if there's anything that I've learned from this experience, okay, it's to set out to start with, right? There's two main parts to this. It's right now there's this massive piece around inclusion and diversity in football. Now, Quakes, let's just be blunt and honest. There's not enough people that look like you and me in the game. Yeah. And more so, if people from your communities are finding it difficult, mate, my people are non-existent. Yeah, 100%. They don't exist. 100%. They don't exist. At least from your background, you can tell me, well, we've got 30% of the players in the Premier League from my community. Yeah. That's if they choose to associate themselves as part of your community. You know, that's a whole separate discussion in its own. Yeah. So for me, it was right. Okay, I've got all these qualifications. So just to kind of go back to the coaching part a little bit, I've been coaching for about 10 years, and my journey's gone. And I'm conscious. One of the questions you kind of, I guess I know that you sent ahead of time was around how did I get into it? And I guess in short, I was 16, 17. I was a massive football fan. Didn't really know what I wanted to do next. Went to college. And during those 2-3 years from 16, 17, kind of 18 sort of age, I fell into the wrong crowd. Ended up with a few convictions. And I thought to myself, sugar, I've got to do something here. See if I'm going to carry on doing what I'm doing, or I've got to shift the direction of where I'm going. And leading up to that, I knew people that around me that did coaching. I was still massively interested in playing football and just enjoying football as a fan. So I decided to take my level 1, age 18, 19-ish, and I haven't looked back since. And then over the years, I've managed to go down that path, get my level 1, do my level 2, do my level 3, which is the UEFA B, go and get my A license, which is the UEFA A license, do a couple of different goalkeeping qualifications along the way as well. And then also now what's now known as the Advanced Youth, which is more like an age-specific specialist qualification. And now I'm currently doing my Masters. So there's so many different things that I've been through personally, both and professionally, that have kind of brought me to where I am now, to the point where I've found it. I've had experience working in academies. It's been, good experiences and bad experiences, but no time wasted, just experiences gained.
Yeah.
More than anything else. And I think for me, it's right. As a brown man in this industry,
yeah,
I've got to try and make myself stand out. I've got to try and make myself stand out, and people need to know, I guess, who I am. And if I'm not going to come across them directly in a coaching capacity, I want them to be able to come across me somehow.
Yeah,
and that's where that's where the kind of real inspiration behind the podcast came about. And lo and behold, I've now gone from being Coach Yas for people that know me to Coach Yas. Actually, that's the guy on the that Coaches Network podcast, is it? And it's still nowhere near kind of where I want it to be in terms of a brand.
Yeah.
As much as it is being listened to in however many countries, it's still nowhere near where I want it to be and where I feel it can go. But now I'm getting people, and this is the maddest thing. So those people that I was reaching out to at the start of this whole journey of the podcast and saying, right, I want to interview you, and so on and so forth. No response. But I'm persistent, so I'll go again. Some of them, second time round, yeah, we're on it, let's do it. Third time round, yeah, we're on it, let's do it. Fourth time round, oh, yeah, we're on it, let's do it. And you've already missed a few of my emails. It's one of them ones where, oh, sorry, we didn't catch your previous emails. Well, I know you did, but I don't really care. I don't really care about that. Just get on the show, innit?
Yeah.
I know how it is. It's just the way of the world. But to the point where I've now got people who maybe I have previously reached out to, who are now coming to me saying, yes, great work on the podcast. Can we, I'd love to get on it.
Yeah.
So, I've kind of gone to that point where I'm thinking, right, and the reality is, this is the God's honest truth, is that before you know who Coach Yas is, you're going to come across my work. But you're going to start saying, right, who's that guy? Who's that guy? And then listening to the conversations that I'm having with people like yourselves and other people that I've had on my show, you're going to start asking, this guy knows a bit about what he's doing, He actually knows his stuff. And he's actually now got the likes of Chris Ramsey, he's got this person, he's got that person, he's got that person. And before you know, who's that Asian kid that, keeps chatting to all these different people? And then lo and behold, who's that Asian guy chatting to, Chris Ramsey? Who's that Asian guy chatting to, Mark Warburton over at Cuba? Who's that Asian guy chatting to Sol Campbell? And now you're thinking, well, okay, who is he? Yeah. And now it's the Asian guy that sat down with Shaquille O'Neal.
Yeah.
You're going to have to start asking questions.
100%.
And I think that was, I guess, the overarching, kind of underlying inspiration behind it. I want you to see, I need visibility. You need to see what I can do. And if it's not on the coaching field specifically, you can see the kind of work ethic and the drive I have to kind of get to the point where, bro, I don't know about you and I don't know about you, Jim, but I don't know anyone else that's actually sat down with Shaquille O'Neal on an interview.
Yeah.
I don't know anyone. Certainly that's not on ESPN or some NBA channel or some sports channel. I don't know anyone that's done that.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. It's something you need to be proud of, for sure. And I think it kind of just suggests to your entire story how inspirational it is and how you're doing this platform now and how you're starting it through a podcast. And it's something that's inspirational towards me and Kwaku, but it's also something that a lot of other people can, look to learn from. So me and Kwaku are obviously so grateful that you've come on and lent yourself for an hour and a half, giving lots of insight, talking about all these different guests, and just we're so grateful for you to come on and express that. So thanks ever so much for coming on today. We appreciate it, man.
The main takeaway I'll get from what you said as well is like the no time wasted, just experience gained. And I think that's just for everybody who's like doing this. Everything that you're doing, like even if it's pardon the French, it's shit. Like even if you think it's shit, like it's not. It's just experience. It's just you putting down the groundwork to eventually become successful.
100%. And just to kind of build on that quick, whether it is shit or not, the bottom line is you've got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And you're not going to please everyone, so don't be worried about who you're pleasing everyone. And if there's anything my journey, particularly through life, has taught me is, if people are going to like you, let them like you for who you are as an organic response, rather than, okay, I'm going to change myself so that they can like me.
Yeah.
So now, I know people now that, are reaching out to me saying, yeah, good work on the podcast. Hold on a second. 6 months ago, you weren't chatting to me.
Yeah.
You weren't chatting to me, but it's not a problem. I don't mind that, because I've not been focusing on the fact that you weren't chatting to me. I'm just focused on what I'm doing. And if you're part of the journey, you're part of it. If you're not, who cares?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I'm just doing my thing. And I think on that same note, it's like, you've just got to stay true, be organic, stay true to who you guys are, and even part of your journey. And I'm sure that, we'll probably have many conversations after this and beyond. And maybe even a part 2 to actually talk about the football side of stuff. But but I'm sure there is going to be a time that comes and you think to yourself, actually, just stick to the vision that you have. And I go right back to what I said at the top of this conversation. When it's your vision, you can't expect anyone else to have the same passion and love for it that you do. So if it is something that's yours, maintain that it is yours. No one can take that away from you. No one can tell you how to do it. It's got to feel right for you, and that's what you've got to maintain.
Yes, that's a perfect way to kind of round it off, man. That was it's been insightful, like listening to the journeys, listening to everything that you've done. I suppose, like, before we do go, where can people find you? Like, where can you find you on YouTube? Where can you find you on Spotify?
Yeah, so I mean, just type in the Coaches Network podcast, it's on all the major platforms. The YouTube, like I said, it hasn't got too much content on there yet at the moment, so the best place to probably catch any of the content is probably on Spotify or Apple Podcast, Coaches Network Podcast. And if anyone wants to reach out or get in touch, you can do that on Instagram at the Coaches Network, or on Twitter at the Coaches Net. Bit more active on Instagram. My DMs are open for anyone who wants to talk football, talk coaching. But yeah, that's me, man. And like I said, enjoy the journey, man. It's all worth it.
Yeah.
100%. Obviously, we'll put your socials in the description, put it on the screen as well. Make sure you like and subscribe this as well. Follow us on Instagram, which is We Talk Football Podcast. Follow us on Twitter, which is WTF Podcast 90. We're on Facebook. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple Music. You know where to find us. And we'll be back with next week with another episode. Nice one, guys.
Thanks, guys.